Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Koi Perspective podcast. I'm just doing a quick introduction for this video because if you've not seen the video that I'm going to be discussing here, which is my Japan vlog with Tani-san at Ogata Koi Farm, kind of going behind the scenes, doing some secret pond tours and looking at how they raise a lot of their Azukari fish. This video won't make a lot of sense. Go back if you can, just watch that video, the second half of it specifically where we visit Ogata. We ask him if he can take us around some secret ponds, but a lot of it is in kind of broken English, broken Japanese. A lot of people have asked me if I can just kind of go back on it and do like a bit of a recap what we learned from that day. So I've invited Craig Caldwell, a good friend of mine, big supporter of the magazine, to come on and reminisce a little bit about that day and really talk about what we learned, what we can learn from it. And we learn about the raising, the koi foods that they use, filter media, the parents and keeping them outdoors and all this kind of stuff. There's loads and loads of hidden pieces of information in this, and really it's kind of a discussion about how far away we have gone from keeping koi in a Japanese way, because to be honest, in the UK we are keeping them so differently to how they keep them in Japan. So I just wanted to do this little introduction because a lot of the context for this video will actually be in that vlog. So I'll put the link down in the description below. You can go and check it out. Otherwise, if you just want to understand about what we learned, please watch this video, and it's still an interesting discussion. But for those of you who want to visually see it, and that'll give you a better experience, I'll put the vlog down in the description below, and I'm sure I can probably put it up on the screen somewhere. So without further ado, please enjoy this video, and we'll get into it with the introductions. Before we dive into today's episode, just a quick word from the sponsor CWD Pond. Whether or not you're building your new koi pond or you're upgrading your existing setup, these guys have got you covered with sleeper pond kits, pond windows, pressure pipe and all the essentials you need to build a pond. And for Koi Perspective podcast listeners, you can enjoy 5% off using the discount code TKPP5. Check them out, all the links are down in the description below. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Koi Perspective podcast. I'm delighted to say we've got another guest this week. This guy's a little bit more fashionable than the other guests we've had on. Not saying names, Paul. But yeah, no, you might have seen Craig on one of my last videos in Japan. He joined me on my trip with Chris Masters, and I thought it'd be good to get him on to discuss the amazing day that we had Ogata Koi Farm, because that was an awesome day, wasn't it? Getting that private tour around.
I didn't get that often, definitely.
No, so. It was impromptu, but how are you, by the way, after Japan?
Good. I still feeling the blues out all, so I think I'll hopefully be over end of this year again. So
yeah, good stuff.
Nothing set in stone, but we'll make it happen.
And how is my other regular co-host, Si?
I'm doing well, actually. Sun's been shining, a good day at work, so yeah, I'm doing well.
Can't complain. No, and we're missing Dave tonight. He's commuting. I think he's stuck in traffic, so he might join us later on. He might not. Who knows? The man, the myth, the legend. So we'll crack on without him for now. But no, we obviously just coming back off that Japan trip. It was kind of my first real koi trip. I'd done Ogata back a few years beforehand, but they've just, you can see with that new greenhouse they've got, humongous, and the amount of varieties they breed.
Impressive,
it's crazy, isn't it? It's really mad. And I think a lot of people have some preconceived notions about Ogata fish and the quality of them, but it was mad to walk around some of them Azukari greenhouses, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely. The size and quality, some of them were there. It's like a one-stop shop as well, like you said, every sort of different koi. But if you'd seen it there with your own eyes, you would pay a different perspective of it all.
A lot of people think that we had that day planned out, going and visiting and then going behind the scenes. Yeah, but we'd actually gone. It was to probably start the day off. We'd just finished at Okawa, hadn't we? And we were
in Okawa that day.
Chris being Chris, I think he was ready for his afternoon nap.
Siesta.
His siesta. And me and Craig were like, well, should we just go to... should we just pop down to Ogata and see the Azukari, see if we can get any in a bowl? Because the way that it kind of works down there is that once you've had the big events, the auctions, the cup, everybody clears off. It was dead that day, wasn't it?
Aye. I went for hundreds of people to, I think, the three of us, if you were lucky there.
But trying to find your Ginrin shower was like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
It was.
To the
Living
point
for days.
we were going around the ponds with this picture of this Ginrin shower, and we were like, "Is that it? Is that it?"
Aye.
It's the amount of fish. But then we actually found out that the Ginrin shower had been in the Ogata Cup the day before.
Yeah.
So then I checked all my footage back, and I was like, on the video, I'm like, "Ooh, that's a nice Ginrin shower," not knowing it was Craig's Ginrin swimming around in front of us. So
I know.
I think
Funniest bit is we watched the presentation and it had actually placed in the show, so it didn't even click on then either.
Brilliant. But no, it's one of them. It's one of them experiences. I mean, you kind of go into it thinking like a lot of the other thing with Ogata, and I wrote a small piece in the magazine, is that there's so many staff there that it's hard to like nail down Manabu. I think after the Ogata Cup, like the head of the koi farm, he was jetting off to China.
Aye, he's off to China to judge the next couple of days as well.
So we only really had time with Tanny, didn't we? But we actually built quite a good relationship with Tanny.
Yeah, aye. Tanny was a good guy. It's good that he gave us a lot of time that he did, which he didn't seem to get much other places. But they're that busy, you expect it with other places. Like,
Yeah.
Something I didn't actually know. I mean, when we went to see Chris Masters at weekend, didn't he allude to the Ogata, Kawa, and Omasako share bloodlines? Is that what he said?
For the Shiros, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think from what he says is that like a lot of the Shiro breeders all will intertwine like bloodlines to avoid like some level of inbreeding, getting the bloodlines too close together. I'm hoping to do a podcast with a Japanese hobbyist that a lot of you might know. Who I met up with actually in Tokyo, and we were talking about some stuff about genetics and how far away some bloodlines are away from like the original koi, like Karashigoi and things like that. So yeah, it's really interesting discussion when you get into like the breeders, and each individual breeder generally works with all the other breeders. It's very different over here in terms of koi dealers working together with other koi dealers. You rarely kind of see that. But in Japan, the breeders are all, well, have you visited across the road and, go and see what East Tosai are like, or, they're buying and with Ogata, he has amazing relationships with like Oya Fish Farm, I think Izumiya Fish Farm. One of the things about Manabu is when he was young and doing his like apprenticeship, he actually was working at Izumiya. As like an apprentice in Niigata, so breeding Goromo and Yamabuki. And now Ogata is breeding his own Yamabuki and Goromo, but I think now he's selling his parents back to Izumiya. So it's like this circle of life, isn't it? It's really crazy. But some of the Yamabuki in the auction as well, Craig, they were humongous, weren't they?
Aye, there was some huge fish, like huge.
I think one was like 108 centimetres in that auction. Yamabuki. Yeah, and that's Ogata bred as well. Like a lot of people, because he does put on his auctions, you'll see like he puts bloodline next to it. Don't mean that he's bought that. He does have a huge amount of parent sets as well. So, if you see a Chagoi that's got Marasai bloodline, he is breeding Chagoi and he is breeding Yamabuki and all these other lines as well. So it is one of the big.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, not really. Like you say, they probably don't get the recognition that they probably deserve, because a lot of people tend to focus on, the bigger breeders, maybe.
Bigger names.
Yeah. I mean, it's Ogata and, Akawa and breeders like that. It's something that I've never really set my mind to and to look into a bit more. It went until, like I say, when we went up to Chris Masters and he told me that, like they share Omasako bloodlines for Shiros, that, that I became aware of stuff like that.
It's crazy. But like, I think you get that. It's almost like the placebo effect, because it's like, what's the phrase, like, master of all trades but master of none or something? I can't remember what the trade. There's like jack of all trades but master of none. That's kind of like, I think people look at it like that. But really, it's, and I think I said in one of my videos that we were probably, for a lot of the time there were some people at the events, weren't they, from England, but there was not a lot of like English dealers there, were they? Like,
no.
actually selecting from the ponds and stuff. So it's just, maybe we just don't see the quantity of the good ones coming over here. So actually being there, I mean, you picked up, what did you end up buying from Ogata, Craig?
I bought a show in the auction. I think that was it, and then I bought the wee Yotsushiro as well.
Yeah.
Black one. Dad had bought a couple as well. And we had the ones for last year's auction as well, the Shiro and the Hiyotsuru.
Yeah, we'd done the Azukari and we got the Ginrin shower in that bowl, and I think we'd finished there and we were about to like head back to the hotel. And I said to Tani, "Can you take us around any secret, or can you show us like behind the scenes?" And it was absolutely mental. So we got some snippets, and I've alluded to some of it on this podcast before. So we started off outside, and they had the concrete ponds outside with the big black motor engines. And one of the things he said that if they have a liner on, that they're less good for developing sumi.
For sumi,
But then if they have liners on, it's better for fish that don't have sumi. But then we were speaking with Dave about it recently, about what were he saying? Silicatosis? About the silicates in concrete and how that's a big thing in human health. But it could be something about koi as well, that in terms of the actual concrete having an effect on sumi or something. But it's one of them snippets. I mean, it's from what Tani said, it's like Manabu has his superstition about it, I think was what he told us.
Aye, he said it was a superstition, so seems one of the things that was stuck about for years, but he's seen what he was raising, that he's obviously kens what he's doing, like. So. Yeah,
the Shiros were something that we kind of highlighted all throughout the trip, weren't they? As though like they'd made a massive step forward on Shiro Otsuri. They changed the female in the parent set. So the Nisai and stuff like that, I don't know if they were particularly of that new spawning that they'd feel like had moved forward, but the Tosai were really, really good. And so they'll have bought that female side from like someone like Omasako and put it in their lineage. So it's crazy. Only by going and seeing these places you can really see what is like a good, like year on year things do change in Japan. And so you've come off it on your first trip, Craig, going out maybe in October. It might be that it's completely changed again.
Definitely again. So, which is good for us. It's good for us. You're not getting bored anyway. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like you maybe plan to go. Last year I saw some good Shiros, but it might be that you get out there next spring or something like that, next October, and the spawning might have just failed. It's kind of crazy to consider. It's like, how do you run a multi-million-pound business with like such variables? I found it bonkers to think about. But he had his parent sets outside as well, so he showed us some of the parents there. And one of the weird things that I thought, it keeps his like males and females together.
Yeah.
Does that? I mean, that rings alarm bells to me. I don't know what you guys think about that. Having them in like an outdoor environment, massively green pond. I'd be really interested to like speak to some UK farmers and figure out why that's like a safe thing to do. Because imagine one day you go out and they've all spawned and they've got no eggs left for the year.
Like everything's done.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like I can't really consider. Sorry, we've got no Tosai, but they've all had like this massive fun time down in that pond. Yeah, crazy. But no, I think we are
going back to that. What you just said, didn't he say something about? Okay, when water's cold or something like that. Is that what he said?
Like really listen that. I think he basically said it's temperature controlled.
Yeah.
And so long as the temperature don't go like something like above or drop down on a night, is what I suspect. So if there's massive swings on a night time, that's probably when he'd get a bit. I guess that's when he'd get a bit worried. But if anyone knows the answer to the questions why they can keep male and female outside without risk, because it's not like the risk us three take around the table of keeping males and females together. That risk is like multi-million pounds. It's very different.
We're not relying on that for the next season.
Yeah,
it's just a pain in the arse to scrape at the pond.
Because we say it's temperature control, but what happens if they get like a lot of rain or something and that changes the temperature?
Well, we were just coming into the monsoon sort of thing. Yeah. No, at the end of the typhoon that we were coming up.
Well, the Shinkansen got cancelled on our way up to Hiroshima, didn't it, for the rain?
That
was a crazy experience in itself because, I mean, watching the Shinkansen get cancelled is like, I mean, people just didn't know what to do. It was so rare for that to happen. People were running around and there were people kicking off. It were all sorts, but you get all your tickets refunded, and I think you even get some money in like lieu as well, like for the inconvenience, which is crazy.
Yeah. Means that we got like fried chicken again for 7-Eleven. Every cloud.
Yeah, we did eat as weight in fried chicken. That's true. But no, the fish house is there. So that after we'd done the parent koi outside, we went in, and one of the things in that video that like a lot of people picked up on was like what he feeds colour food to, and like what he doesn't feed colour food to.
Yeah. Well, it totally changed everything when I came back for it. Like,
Yeah, so like chagoi, for example, I've never heard that you don't feel chagoi colour food. Have either of you two heard that?
no, that's never been.
Not particular. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it kind of makes sense. Why would you feed a chagoi colour food? I suppose. I don't know. Why would you?
I just don't think I'd have put it in a bracket of like at risk, for colour food.
Especially for the likes of mixed ponds, if you've got Shigoi and Kohaku, you'd be feeding them all the same.
It's like Yamabuki, I think, is one that I wouldn't feed colour food to because they get like it's not shimmies, it's like sunspots, like orange shimmies.
Yeah.
But chagoi is not one. But the reasoning he gave me for chagoi was for shimmies. Now, I've never heard that shimmies are caused by colour food, just in general. I've got a lot of people who say it's genetic or it's sun, UV exposure, but I've never been told shimmies are from colour food before. So that was a learning for me. And then it made sense that he had his asagi in his non-colour food, because if shimmies are produced by colour food, I'd been feeding my Ogata asagi colour food, like a mix, and that did come out with shimmies, so it could be what...
I've heard about different water hardnesses possibly bringing shimmers out, but I don't know what truth's in that.
Yeah, I've heard that as well about water hardness, but I think it's also to do with. So we talk about like water hardness or silicatosis or whatever from silicon from concrete, as Dave put it. But that kind of stuff is supposed to be good for bringing Sumi out. If Manabu's suspicion is good for bringing Sumi out, and water hardness is good for bringing Sumi out.
I could imagine that in really hard water, I could imagine that there's maybe a lot more silicates in the water possibly that might cause it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, I've just never been able to see like a raising pond like that with mixes in. Because generally when you get Tosai, they'll keep Asagi to Asagi. That was like a proper Azukari pond, wasn't it, with expensive fish. And one of the things in that video as well, like I've been raving about Ginrin being like the next big thing in koi. And in there, I did see a lot of the Kadogin Shiros. And in my experience, I really do think that is what a lot of breeders are working at. I've actually just seen on Facebook that Shintaro have posted a Sanki with Kadogin. We saw it at Omasako, we've seen it at Ogata, we've seen it at Momotaro with Kahaku. I honestly think that is the next big thing, Kadogin. I think like people are working on it in the background. I've asked a few people like what their opinion is, and a lot of people say, oh, when you do a spawning, you get X amount of abnormities. And I wonder if that's got, it's just the law of averages. But then when you go to somewhere like that fish house we were in, and then you see, oh, there's a Kadogin, there's another one, then you start to think this is not a coincidence now.
Yeah,
no, they're definitely breeding it in there, I think. Like.
I think so. No, they've just done another auction listing on the internet, and I can see 3 more Shiros that are all going to the Wakagoi with Kadogin. So they're 100% working on it. But it's kind of like, how do you get the edge on just a normal Shiro at a koi show or something like that? I don't know. Have you guys been thinking about Ginrin, or have you seen more Ginrins or less Ginrins?
I've certainly noticed a lot more Ginrin coming through, more hobbyists wanting to buy Ginrin. I mean, myself, I've got quite a few Ginrin, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, I think Ginrin fish, really nice ones. I think they're fantastic. If the Ginrin's done right, I think they're fantastic. There is always that they say Ginrin don't quite grow as quick as normal Wagoi fish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've certainly seen an uplift in the amount of Ginrin fish that have been coming through.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's always been this thing about Ginrin fish not growing bigger. I wonder if that's what they're working on. That's why we're seeing so many producers. They're trying to get the size on them. Because I really do think if you've got, I don't know how you feel about. So if you had a Ginrin Kahaku and a regular Wagoi Kahaku, both with like the same pattern, same luster, same everything, but one has Ginrin, one doesn't. Which are the two do you prefer? Personal preference.
What would I prefer out of a Ginrin and a normal Wagoi
If you
fish?
were offered one, or you were judging two at a koi show,
It's difficult. I don't know. I really don't know. I do like look at Ginrin fish in my pond. I won't like a pond full of Ginrin. You know, I won't like to see sparkles everywhere.
no, yeah. Craig,
I'm not sure. I'm still myself stuck in the sort of UK judging way that a normal koi is always going to do better and look better.
yeah.
A few years ago, I wouldn't have had a Ginrin in the pond. Now there's 3 or 4 swimming about there, and 3 or 4 swimming up at Dad's as well. So they're definitely growing on me, definitely growing on me. And I think the whole growing thing, I think that's a past thing. Like the Ginrin show that I got for Ogata's Sansai, and it measured in at 69 after quarantines.
Yeah, that was mad size for a Ginrin show, isn't it?
Definitely,
Sansai.
definitely. So they're definitely getting away from it all. Like,
I think one of the things from my point of view is if you add the Ginrin element on top and it's not at sacrifice of other elements, I've got to appreciate it more because it's an added layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you take a Kahaku and how complex that is very complex. But if you then add the Ginrin element on top, it's like that extra. And I wonder if that's what they're seeing as how they're going to get the edge at the koi show, because that's the breeders will judge on also complexity of how they're bred as well. You know, for example, like we've just seen the All Japan this year with the Showa. And that's an extremely complex fish, and like one in a 10-year type shower, literally. But it's almost like Sankey are less forgiving to breed. You got less room to hide on a Sankey, aren't you? In terms of the Sumi's not covering any, rough edges of Benny or Sashi or Kiwa. On a Sankey with Subo Sumi, you've got nowhere to hide. And it's like Sankey are always referred to in Japan as like you don't make money on breeding Sankey because they're so difficult. You get so many bad ones to good ones. So now adding the Ginrin element on top, is it like that's the next step?
another cloak.
Yeah. It's kind of like we've done Sankey now on to Ginrin. So I don't know. That's kind of my gut feeling. One of the other things we did when we were in Japan was the Hiroshima. We did 2 koi shows, didn't we? Both on very different ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
So one of them was the Hiroshima Nyogasai, which was pretty much like one of the like major koi shows in Japan. Obviously, you'll have like the Niigata and Nyogasai, and then the Hiroshima one, and then you've got like more. So they're like regional to the breeders that are in that region. And obviously, in Hiroshima, you got Sakai, Tamura, Sakai Company, Matsue, some really big breeders. So, what was your initial impression at like the Hiroshima koi show?
It was mind blowing. I would definitely wipe the floor with the UK scene anyway.
Yeah.
But the one that got me was the no air pumps. They had the oxygen stones in all the tanks.
Yeah, that was great. Do you know, I don't even think I've mentioned that before.
No, it was no air stones. And they had the whole thing set up that morning and all the fish in. So I think you were there early at that one.
I got there about 8 o'clock whilst we were all setting up. And it was crazy because you could see like Sakai Fish Farm rocking up with like a lorry full of fish, and like the side comes off of it, and then he's orchestrating it like an actual orchestra. It's crazy, and pointing which fish is going in which vats and stuff, and the staff. But one of the most impressive bits was like the judging as well, like the speed of it. Because fish were in that day, and they were judged that day, and then they were taken home that day as well. Like, I know that's not the same with others. It was one day, in, out, no messing around, was it? But the judging was just a complete, like, whirlwind. You'd see them at one end, and then they'd be like almost like jogging across the show circuit, and you've got like Kentaro Sakai, and he's like, right, we're off to this, and then it's kind of like they instantly look at a fish, and then they'll look at another, and they'll put hands up for the first one, hands up for the second one, and it's instantaneous, like the speed of it. Like with the grand champion and stuff, that was pretty much decided within 20, 30 minutes.
I think probably before they even went in the vat, they had no. It was getting carried over.
It's crazy. It was absolutely mental, but I've never seen fish on that scale. You talk about like the UK scene. I'd be very surprised if we could get like a UK fish that would have placed in that
Yeah,
koi
I
show.
know.
Which is kind of disheartening in some ways, isn't it? Like, you know,
It was very humbling. You think you're doing well, and then you go over there and you go, "I'll probably get something deep enough here."
Yeah, and the fish on the bags on the floor as well was kind of a different.
That was a whole different experience. Especially in the other show, we're just right in the key truck, right away home.
Yeah, because we went from that one. We did the Hiroshima one with big, like up to 100 cm fish up there, and then we went from there to the one in Fukuoka. But the one in Fukuoka was it was smaller than some UK koi shows, wasn't it? Really small.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hobbyists there, so completely different. But there was no vats, so every fish is in a bag. But only when you place, then get moved into a small vat. And when I'm talking small, it's like really
60
small.
centimetres.
60 centimetre vats, yeah, crazy. So they were up to like 55 cm fish, weren't they?
Yeah, I think they were.
And obviously it's down in the Kyushu area, and it's pretty much like you had Ogata Fish Farm with their Okawa, and kind of them two probably fight it out at the top. Interestingly, like the judging there, I remember speaking to Marichiku Koi Farm at the time, and he was absolutely fuming at the judging. So, like, a lot of people will say, "Oh, we get annoyed at judges," but over there, I asked him, like, why are Goshki being so, like, preferred over Gosanki? And that's another thing that's definitely happening over there at the minute, is Goshki are getting some form of, like, power ranking in terms of if there's a good Goshki versus a good Kahaku. I think Goshki are probably starting to win out in that respect, in them kind of smaller size brackets. So that was another interesting bit. And the grand champion there was actually Shiro, wasn't it, as well, which I didn't expect that, did you?
No, anything outside the Gosanki is just totally different, like, no what you expect. It was beautiful, though. It was a
beautiful Shiro. And they had some really, like, nice individual small pieces. Like, I think one of, like, the baby champions was, like, a Ginrin Sakura Ogon. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's a stunning little piece. Definitely changed my mindset on koi shows and what they can be. And, like, they don't make money there, do they? They had, like, Saki and JPD there, but they're not there for making money, are they? It's just for...
No, because I was sort of under the impression, like, I make it some goodies to buy and take home, but they dealers, like, as farmers, but no shops or anything like that.
Yeah.
So do the breeders, like, you know, the regional shows, do they take those shows as serious as they do something like the All Japan? Like, are you likely to see the same caliber as fish sort as a GC at a regional show compared to a GC at All Japan?
Yeah, I think they do definitely take it seriously. You can tell by, like, the fish that are brought to them, like, this some serious fish. I would say, like, the Kyushu auction felt very small. And it's not like that fish is... I mean, you had all the, like, major, like, publications in Japan there, like, covering it photography-wise and stuff like that. So that all the results will go into the magazine in Japan and things. So it's definitely covered. It's definitely coveted. And it was a big deal. And I know from speaking with, like, Marichiku how annoyed he was. And that passion that he has to try and win it. But they have a couple of shows a year in Kyushu, so they have, like, the regional Nogi Osai, but then I think there's, like, another koi show in Kyushu as well, which was another pretty big one in that region. But it's all for marketing. I think I did an interview recently with somebody in Niigata, and he said, I want to win koi shows because if I do, it'll help me sell more fish because it's good exposure and stuff as well. So definitely they want to win it. They want to win it. And, like, with the Hiroshima Koi Show, you know, you see Omasako's Best Kajaku. Do you remember that one, Craig, with the Maritan?
Yeah.
Massive thing. That then rocked up at the All Japan Koi Show. So if it was worth risking for Hiroshima and the All Japan, like, that fish is... They wouldn't have risked it for the Hiroshima one if they didn't think it was worth it. They'd have saved it for the All Japan. So they definitely thought it was worth risking, and there was some stunning fish there. Although with Sakai, the big Sakai fish farm, I would say his best stuff wasn't at the Hiroshima Nyogasai. I don't think. I think Sakai Company had his best stuff there.
But I think with Sakai, he's got the stuff that he doesn't need to take his best. Why risk your best if you could take second best and still get Grand Champ?
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. But it's almost like, I guess the other thing as well is when you're at that level, they don't want to play the cards for the All Japan.
Yeah,
They don't want to show the hand too early with what they've got. So it's definitely there are breeders there taking the best stuff, but there's also like at the very top level, the major prize is All Japan, isn't it? So like your 90 cm Sakai examples are going to stay for that. And at the Niigata and Nagasai, I've never been, so I can't comment, but I suspect it'll be the same thing. Like Dainichi's GC, I think, won the Nagasai a couple of years ago or a year ago, and then has gone to the All Japan this last year and won. So it's kind of like a step down, but still very, very important. Yeah, is what I'd say. But yeah, it was awesome to go and do that. I really, really enjoyed it. I'd love to do it again.
I'd love to do it once.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Of course with it, but definitely going around them fish houses. Definitely one of the things I saw was a lot of Ginrin stuff. But I was really impressed with your Ginrin shower. I mean, the fish that just popped up out of nowhere. So you were going around those Azukari houses. It must have been quite a nice feeling to think that your shower was swimming around in one of them.
Definitely that I got a decent treatment. Because that's the thing, I've bought Azukari before, and you always think if I paid this money and they're just sitting up in one of these back ponds and no nurtured or cared for, then you're just buying into it. But no, to see that they actually did like for them and care for them, like, so...
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're, as you say, farmers in their sort of line of work. But they do care, they are very passionate about what they do. Like,
yeah. But we were quite shocked when we got into shipment night at Chris Masters because the fish that popped up in Japan and we couldn't find it in Japan, suddenly we opened a box on shipment night and it were in Barnsley, wasn't it? The fish that were meant to be staying another year, Azukari, ended up in Barnsley.
I think there's a few nights thinking, should it come home or should it stay there? And I thought, no, especially Tani saying, no, you need to keep it here another year, it'll be a lot better. And then it was just, what the fuck moment.
Yeah. I think there was maybe a miscommunication there.
I think so. I
think we might need to get Chris on his Japanese lessons again. But no, it was cool to see. I mean, we went round the rest of that indoor fish house and we went round his colour food ponds, and another weird snippet was you were talking about his sinking food being better for skin. Have you heard that one, Si?
No, not something I've heard, to be honest with you.
It could be something Ogata food related, but to me I've never heard that. The only thing I can think of is it's less stressful to be eating sinking food. I don't know.
He did not say whether there were anything different in it or anything like that.
No, he just kind of said like he finds that the skin looks better when he feeds sinking food, and it could be something to do with either the composition of the food being slightly different from floating. But I suspect it isn't. But he does feed floating. He just said that he finds that the skin's better with sinking food. But we were looking round and I asked him in that video and I put a little overlay because I said his fish looked fat. And I said, I didn't mean that disrespectfully. But I didn't know how else to, like, broken English, like, ask him the question. But some of them had, like, real round, like, bellies on them, didn't they? And he's obviously feeding them so much food to get to that level. Like, there must be, like, pushed within an inch of what they can take with food. But then he takes them off for a considerable time at temperature to bring the body back round again. So it's all about efficiency, innit? Chuck a load of food at them and then allow them the time afterwards to actually, like, reduce down in fat, body fat, which I've never particularly seen before. I've never seen fish look like that. But then you don't see in a mud pond, you don't see what the fish look like in a mud pond, do you? Until they're raised out. But at some point in the mud ponds, they must have to stop feeding them before they're then netting the pond. So I guess when you're in concrete ponds, actually seeing the shape of a fish during a feeding season is something I've not seen before. Which makes me think, am I underfeeding my fish during summer? Like, should they have a fatter body shape and then in winter they kind of lose that? I don't know what you guys think to that.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, I suppose I dare say the majority of hobbies to some degree underfeed the fish. But I don't know. I mean, I know They say that if you're planning on showing fish, it's better to get them a little bit bigger than you actually want them in the body, body-wise, before you come to condition them. I've heard that. But as in terms of actually getting the fish fatter, it's not something I've particularly come across, to be honest with you, or heard about.
No. What did you reckon, Craig, seeing them in that? Were it something you noted, or?
I did notice they were a bit chunky looking, like, but you were that just engulfed in everything at the one time.
What sex was those fish?
They'll have been female if they were
Female.
Nisai, yeah. I mean, very, very rarely in Japan they'll raise males through to Nisai. Like, I mean, there's a lot of talk at the minute about male fish. Like, I can only tell you what I see in Japan and what Craig's seen in Japan. Like, male fish. I mean, we were at Suetsugu, weren't we? And the male fish pond was like, he said, "Oh, these are going to fishing lake." Like, that is the truth. That's what he said to us, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
And like, people have obviously like misconstrued that as me saying there's no good male fish. There is good male fish, but they generally just don't fetch the price of a female, do they? That was the
I don't think it's worth them taking the risk for even wasting their energy.
or the
raising them on.
investment. Yeah, yeah. So it's like when you see like the raising ponds at Ogata, if it's something Nisai, you just automatically know it's female. But that's going to be controversial, and people are going to tell me I'm wrong about that. But I can only say what me and Craig heard in Japan and saw in Japan. So, but no, it's. I mean, the value is in males. I mean, you go to the Ogata auction, and we were there. The males just, generally probably a third of the price of the females.
Yeah.
It's just fact. And you bought some males while you were out there, didn't you, Craig?
Aye, I didn't bother them. I didn't usually go on the whole thing in male, female. The males are getting a lot better year on.
Mm-hmm.
They do take a little bit more time to catch up with the females, but they're definitely there. Like,
Because you do. It's worth saying you have shown your fish in the UK as well.
we show quite often. Me and Dad, aye.
So if you see a trailer parked outside any
With Scotland
in the
flags.
UK, with Scotland flags on, and that's Craig's trailer, which is quite nifty actually. So you've obviously built that because you have a long travel distance, don't you, to get?
We're roughly about 7 hours to the National Lake. So.
Yeah, it's a long way to travel fishing bags, isn't it?
We've done it before when we shown at the National. Was up at 2-3 in the morning bagging fish at the pond and boxing them up. We know taking a lot, but 6 or 7 fish that you're trying to get out at 2 in the morning, and then consider to drive down 6-7 hours after it. Takes its toll on you, like definitely takes its toll. So,
well, it takes a toll on the fish as well. To be fair,
oh, definitely, them more than us. Like,
it's kind of harder for you. I'd say it's like some of you got like it's not an advantage for you, is it? I wouldn't say that I'd like my fish to travel longer.
No,
so you're kind of already starting at a bit of a deficit already, aren't you?
But since using the trailer, we've used that the past 2 years now, and then the comments you get with them like, "Oh, they seem to be travelled well," and so sometimes you're looking about them when they've travelled better than people that have just been an hour or 2 away. So it's definitely helped.
Yeah, I mean, when I benched at Great British Koi Show, whenever I benched your fish, there were never any damage or anything like that with the trailer and stuff. So yeah, no, it's worth saying. I mean, like you've said, you've bought males because you thought they were good value in Japan, and you're going to show them, and that's it's like good males are good males. And I don't want people thinking that by me saying these things about males, it means all males are bad. That's not my consensus. I think if you want to get into like showing in Japan and stuff, like the little differences between male and female do get picked up in probably more in Japan and places like that. So, and like keeping fish Azukari and stuff, it's only male stuff that get that kind of privilege unless it's a superb male. But no, it's that. The next part of like that video that we did was the media, talking about like the media in the ponds. That was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because Chris has always sold that crystal bio from Ogata. It's like really light ceramic media, and we said to Tanya that people think like after a certain amount of time it like degrades, it goes soft, and he literally lifted it up and started slamming his welly on it, didn't he? Like that was 30-year-old stuff. Kind of crazy, and it looked dirty to me. I would have looked at that and gone, could use probably a clean. But then we asked him like, how often do you clean? He said like 2 times a year, which again is something and it's made me think about how we use ceramic media in this country. I know we've had this chat at Chris Masters, didn't we, Si? Is it going to change your mind on it or not? Because you've seen Chris uses similar methods.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm always up for, looking into something new. Well, obviously it's not something new. Crystal Bio's been around years, but it's something new to me, what I've never used before, so it's always something worth considering, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously I've got to put my new bio in, and I don't know what I'm going to do with that, so I hope it's possible, yeah.
Yeah, we asked Chris about, because he's got a drum on, so it's a drum. And then he has, after that, in the biochamber, is just sacks of ceramic with a tiny air pump in the bottom of it. So he has no moving beds, and in Japan they have no moving beds. So the question is why is it so different here? Craig, I think you run a moving bed, don't you?
Run a moving bed and a moving bed up at the main pond up at Dad's as well. So, but I think it's the same way anything. The Crystal Bio was out, everybody bought it. Well, nobody's going to buy media again, so we need to come up with something new and something new. And then the variations of the new stuff you get as well. All just look the same.
Yeah.
Or talk a different job. But mine's this moving bed came, can't fault it whatsoever.
No. But
I think the main thing what's sold to hobbyists around moving K1 chambers is they sold as self cleaning, aren't they? That's mainly what they sold on. But I mean, like were you saying, if they're using static ceramic in a biochamber and they're saying they don't only clean it twice a year or something like that, then I guess something static that is just sat there may just scare some people. I don't know.
Yeah. I think anyone in the UK that would have, having not had that experience before and runs a moving bed, then to look at that static chamber and see I don't know what the organic matter that was on there, it would scare a lot of people, I think. Just in the same way the green water would have scared people in that parent pond. That was super green, more green than any water I've seen before. But I don't know. It's definitely. I've definitely thought about it. I mean, we've got a podcast that's aired before this one that Craig you won't have seen yet, but we did one with Sid Mitchell, and he was talking about how the aeration can cause more dispersion from the biofilm on your media. So if you're aerating and you've got more dispersion, it's obviously less. We've talked about this site. It's less appealing to nitrobacter for nitrites and things, and probably okay for ammonia, getting rid of ammonia. But your the actual nitrification cycle, the nitrites, I think it's less suitable for that. And I wonder if more a delicate environment, like a static ceramic, like they have in Japan, is probably more suitable for.
I personally think that a static ceramic is more suitable for nitrobacter. I do, because I mean I've got K1 myself, well K plus, and I have had issues with nitrite, and I know loads of people that's had issue with plastic media and nitrite spikes and things like that. You see it online, you read about it, so it's not it's not uncommon. You do see it that people have nitrite issues with plastic media, and I just think something natural such as a ceramic or rock or something like that has just got a much better ability to let bacteria like nitrobacter colonize.
Yeah. I definitely feel like if you're feeding a pond, and we've spoken about feeding levels, with the ponds at Ogata, the fat fish as we described them, if you're pushing your fish that far, you're going to have nitrite. You're not going to have zero.
No, you're never going to have zero ammonia or zero nitrite.
But it's if you're getting to a point, or you want to get to that level, and your K1 is not super mature, or your Helix. I mean, we say K1. I feel bad putting it all on K1. There is
plastic
media is probably the better one to describe it as. If you're running that and getting, as soon as you start feeding more to achieve the body results you want, the feeding results you want, and your media's not doing it, perhaps looking at like a ceramic option is the way to go. Because I know, Si, for you, like you're really pushing your pond now, and you've fed them, you've heated them through winter, and now it's kind of you're upgrading your biochain, to deal with it. And I just wonder if maybe the answer is to go like half and half, as you've discussed, like wall down the middle half, you know.
Yeah, well, it's something I'm considering, like maybe having I don't know, maybe half and half, or maybe 3/4 one and other. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but it's certainly something to think about. There's something in it. I think.
Yeah, but I think interestingly for them at Ogata, like they use the crystal bio in a shower and in the filter as well. So then I think about, is the shower more for ammonia, you know, gassing off and things, and then is the static bed for your nitrobacter and stuff like that.
Well, there's a lot of farms that'll just run showers with nothing in them, isn't they, and just use them to degas.
Yeah, and I definitely asked him, because they were using huge pipes. They must have been like 8-inch pipes over them showers. They were ginormous, weren't they, Craig? And I asked him like, what's in them? And I thought if you put crystal bio in that, surely it's going to be destroyed, obliterated. But he said no, it's crystal bio in there, and I didn't see it, so I can't confirm as to the condition of it. But I mean, the water was crystal clear, wasn't it? There was no staining on the water, which obviously they've got the facilities to change a lot of water, so probably that's the case. But I guess the next part of the discussion with like what we learned that day was we started asking him about what he would do if we walked in there one day, or he walked in there one day, and one of the fish were like clamped in a corner or something. Because he basically fired the question back to us and said, well, what would you do? And I said, well, the common consensus is you'd get it out and give it a mucus scrape and look at the mucus sample under microscope. And he basically started laughing, didn't he? Like that was his response. And I was like, why? What would you do? And he said, well, maybe injection. And that is bonkers to think about that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we can't get the medications like that for that kind. Imagine going to your vet and going, one of my fish is sulking, can I have some antibiotics? It just doesn't happen, does it?
No.
But
that brings me back to when we were speaking to Koji for Suetsugu, and that guy had came up for medicine, and it was like 3 or 4 different things. And Chris says, "Oh, so how will we dose that?" So, just everything in at once. Just nick it all with them all, and you thought, "Fucking hell."
Yeah. Well, another thing is like you see all the people from like Taiwan, Thailand, Indonesia and stuff. So macetin is a chemical they use in Japan, which you cannot get in England, and it supposedly is super effective for flukes. Yeah, but not in terms of like the culture with those guys. I don't know where we've kind of developed this culture about how we look after fish, because it is so different in Japan, and perhaps because we treat them as pets and they see them as stock, and it's like
it's difficult for them, isn't it? I mean, if they get a pond full of sulking fish, and obviously they have a lot of fish, that's a lot of time out of their day to be scraping the fish, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think they've got to view it as though if it's a case of we've got 500 fish in this pond and one of them's got, I don't know, like dropsy, or one of them's really suffering, the likelihood is they'd either inject it, or it wouldn't surprise me they just like cull it there and then. But, you know, it could be like separate the weak from the strong. And if it's like the whole pond is suffering, that's where they give them like huge PP treatments. And I know Tanny, for example, I've sent him some fish before on Facebook and stuff, and I've said, oh, any idea what this could be? It's like an allergic reaction when I was going through some issues last year. And he said, bring your temperature up to like 24, PP and salt at the same time, is what he said, and using like a combination. And I think they don't even care what type of parasite it is. They just have one treatment, and the word that they use is kind of like sterilize the environment. And we've spoken about that in the past, but the culture is, like in the Azukari ponds, for example, you know, Craig's left his shower for Azukari and stuff. They'll get all the fish in one pond. They've decided that's what's going in there this year. They'll sterilise the environment, and then once it's sterilised, they've PP'd it, the salt. They probably won't even check to see if they've got anything, because they'll be using super strong stuff, levels that kills everything. And then after that, it's just a case of feed them and don't touch them. like until they get harvested, and like having the respect around that season and how they then go, right, they're in the growing season, so we just do not interfere. It's not like they go, oh, actually, let's add one more fish into that pond because let's go down to, and it's not like they can just willy-nilly. And obviously over here, we don't kind of work like that. It's very hard for me to say don't buy any fish mid-season because we all do. We all do.
We're all guilty of it.
Like buying fish is the most important thing, isn't it?
Well, it's some rush. It's adrenaline rush.
Yeah. And then you've obviously got like I think if you're not enjoying buying fish purchases and making purchases, then you're probably going wrong somewhere down the line. So I don't want to deter people from it, but having some level of understanding that adding something new into your environment or something like that, then I think you've got to understand that you're probably going to have some form of knock-on consequences. You can't just, unless you're very lucky, or like for Craig, for example, if you bought something from Chris Masters in Barnsley, you've got a 4-hour drive. Is it 4 hours back home?
4.5, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, what are the chances that you're going to have fish that's not stressed by the end of that journey, and then you're putting it into like a heated environment? It's not ideal, is it?
No, definitely not.
Well, I'm definitely waffling, but so much information from that day. We came out of that fish house, and one of the ponds were at 36 degrees, wasn't it? You pointed that out. That's human body temperature, that.
I know.
Because
we going into a sauna when we went into the greenhouse.
You took a breath and it felt like all the air had escaped your lungs. It was that hot in there. But that was strange in and of itself, because like for the Benigoi, for example, like every year he puts them out in the outside ponds that we saw at the start. He puts them out there, and then he brings them back in, and he basically says, when I bring them back in, they are ready to die.
Yeah, I says it was like death's door.
Yeah, like they were just ready to die, roll over and die. And so I think to myself, like, what? First of all, why? And he couldn't give me a straight answer, really.
No.
He was kind of like, every year with the Benigoi. So every year he puts his Benigoi toast out, and then he brings them in, and they're ready to die. And I don't want to put anyone off buying a Ogata Benigoi, because they're definitely not weak bloodline. Like we saw some, again, like 100 cm Benigoi.
Yeah, 100 plus.
They're not weak fish, but it's just something about that parent set or that bloodline that makes them weak to being exposed to outdoor. And I can't imagine if you're like a UK breeder and then you put all your fish outside in a colder climate over here, bring them in, and you've got to heat, like no breeder in England heats anything to 36 degrees. Like it's just unfathomable.
I've never heard that.
No, I've never heard of that. But I think it was Chris that were telling me that it kills like certain levels of like bacteria at 36 degrees in the water. Like you're actually killing off bacteria on your pond walls and all sorts. I need to do some more research into it, but because I'm not sure what about that temperature level makes a difference to what. Maybe we've lined up some actual veterinary people to come on. It'd be nice to get some questions answered about what that kind of like temperature level does to a fish's immune system, because you'd think that you'd be frying them, like you won't be able to get enough food in them to sustain themselves, would you? Like
they seem to be thriving, like.
And obviously at them sort of temperatures you need some serious aeration going in, wouldn't you, to maintain oxygen levels?
Yeah. It was crazy. But he was feeding them, and they looked right as rain, didn't they? They didn't look like they had a care in the world. But it was, them little feeding tunnels were awesome, seeing all the different varieties and stuff. The other thing that we picked up from him with the chagois, he says he looks inside. So when he's like selecting chagois, he looks like inside the mouth on a chagoi, see if they've got sumi on the inside of the mouth. And if they've got sumi on the inside of the mouth, then he calls them monas out because he's got too much sumi. I've actually seen that with sheros as well, where they look inside the mouth to see if there's sumi inside the mouth, which that's something new that I've learned this trip. But what a crazy couple of days that were in Japan, honestly.
Oh, definitely.
But it's nice to give like an insight for someone who's wanting to go, because without going, you can't get this. And as much as I'd like to do a podcast like this every couple of weeks or whatever, there's people have to go to experience it.
Oh, definitely. We always wanted to go first, but since we started keeping quiet, which is a bit a few years ago now. So, but it was good to finally go. Like, and you watch the videos and stuff, but nothing really compares to it until you're there. Like,
No, I think you've got the bug now, haven't you?
oh, definitely.
But no, you've got some good fish, and hopefully showing them this year, aren't you? So the Ginrin shower in that video, hopefully we'll.
Yeah,
see.
that'll be it this year. A few of them will be at the National, Scottish, and the Great British will be it this year.
Yeah, nice. But no, I think anyone who's not already seen it, please go and watch that video. For some reason, it's not quite got picked up by the weird YouTube algorithm compared to some of my other videos. But I can't believe how much I learned on that video, and actually physically seeing it was awesome. And yeah, I'm hoping we can get back out there and do some more content with Ogata, because it was an awesome day that. But yeah, we on the Japan trip, you bought some other bits and bobs. So you're set up at home, Craig. Tell us about that, because you started it last year, really, didn't you?
Yeah, started building it about this time last year. So it was supposed to just be the growing, and things would get moved up to Dad's pond that we started. So mine's is just 900 gallons. It's not big at all, and it just goes to a drum, moving bed, and a shower. So really simple setup. Started with fish about 15 to maybe max about 30 centimetres, and now they're pushing 65 cm. A lot of expensive bills with sake and curry and the heating,
Yeah.
but no, they've been doing really well in there, really well.
And you've bought some bits off UK breeders as well. It's not just like Japanese stuff that you...
No, got a few bits for Adam Bayer. Got a wee show in there. Probably going to be a long-term project. You've seen it yourself. It's coming along well. It's put on good size. Mukashi I got for the auction at the Great British Koi Show. That's an absolute tank now as well. I think that's mid-60s or something now as well. So I think that'll be it this year.
Okay, interesting. But you've got like a fascination for like weird and wonderful varieties, haven't you? I think that goes... So you got like Hajiro, you got like a black diamond. What else you've got? Really weird. A lot of single colours.
Aye, a lot of single colour. After the stuff came back from Japan, there's actually some Gosanki in it too. So I was always after big fish. I love seeing them grow. And you get a lot of pleasure with them. And not much could go wrong with them either, which is always a benefit. But no, they've done really well.
Awesome. Well, I've enjoyed that. Like I say, I'm sure that if you haven't already, go and check that video out. But no, I've enjoyed reminiscing about the trip. So without giving us all the blues, we'll end it there. But like I say, if you go and see, if you're at a koi show, you'll no doubt see Craig around at one of the major koi shows. He'll be showing his fish. You might even see his Ginrin shower pop up in that. So
and pop up and say hi. I've not got a face you'll forget. So
well, we were walking down some dark alleys with Craig, and in Japan, the culture is if you've got tattoos, they think you might be part of the Yakuza. And people that don't know Craig, he is like head to tail. Well, maybe not tail, but head to toe in tattoos. And we walked down some very strange places in Japan by accident and got some very strange looks. But I've seen Craig at his worst when we were going up a castle in Hiroshima, and he is actually scared of heights. So he's not as hard as he looks. So definitely go.
It's all an act.
All an act. Yeah.
The heights come out and it's all out the window.
No, he's definitely not an intimidating fella, so don't let him fool you. Go and say hello to Craig if you see him at a koi show. And it's been awesome. Thank you for joining us, and I'm sure we'll speak to you again after you've been back and reminiscing again all over again.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, speak to you next week.
Right, speak to you later, guys.
Cheers.